Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Before we begin, I'd love it if you could share in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always a joy to see people tuning in from different corners of the world and at different moments in their day or night. I also want to take a gentle moment to thank those of you who have already subscribed to this channel and who keep pressing that little like button on the videos that you find most valuable. It truly helps me know what resonates with you, and it helps others find these calming spaces too. And if you ever have ideas or topics you'd like me to explore in future videos, please feel free to suggest them in the comments. Your thoughts and inspirations are always welcome here. So, with that said, let's begin. Imagine the quiet hum of your own thoughts, a gentle vibration beneath the surface of awareness. Picture this: within the living architecture of your brain, there exist millions of tiny architects, each working in perfect harmony. These are neurons, the fundamental units of thought and feeling. They are not like the sturdy trees or the vast oceans we see outside, but rather intricate, delicate structures, each one a silent engineer of the mind. Think of them as the brain's own electrical circuitry, humming with a quiet energy that shapes every sensation, every emotion, every fleeting thought you might have. This is where the magic of thought begins, not with grand explosions, but with the subtle, persistent flow of electrical signals traveling through these tiny, interconnected pathways. Now let us consider how this electrical dance begins. Within each neuron, there is a specialized region called the axon. This is the long, thin extension that carries the signal outward, like a thread of light stretching from one part of the brain to another. But before that signal can travel, it must first be generated. The process starts deep within the neuron's cell body, where a complex sequence of chemical and electrical events unfolds. Think of it as a quiet awakening, a slow buildup of energy that eventually triggers a wave of electrical activity. This wave is called an action potential. It is not a loud shout, but a steady, rhythmic pulse, a tiny spark that travels along the axon. The action potential itself is generated by the movement of charged particles, sodium and potassium ions, across the neuron's membrane. It is a process as precise as a clock, yet as gentle as a breath. When the signal reaches the end of the axon, it encounters a tiny gap called the synapse. This is where the electrical impulse meets its next neighbor, the next neuron, and transforms itself into a chemical message. The beauty of this process lies in its simplicity and its profound complexity. The sodium-potassium pump works like a tiny rhythmic tide, pulling in sodium ions and pushing out potassium ions. This creates a steady electrical charge across the neuron's membrane. When the signal reaches a certain threshold, the membrane becomes temporarily permeable, and the ions rush in. This rush is the action potential, a brief, intense surge of electricity that travels down the axon. It is a signal that is both fast and reliable, traveling at speeds ranging from a few meters per second to over 100 meters per second, depending on the neuron's structure. This electrical pulse is the brain's way of communicating with itself, a silent language that connects one thought to another without the need for words. It is the quiet rhythm that keeps your thoughts flowing, even when you are asleep or dreaming. But the journey doesn't end at the axon. The electrical signal must cross the synapse to reach the next neuron. This is where the brain's genius shines. The synapse is a microscopic gap, only about 1/1000th of a millimeter wide. To bridge this tiny space, the electrical signal is converted into a chemical message. This happens through the release of neurotransmitters, small molecules that act like silent messengers. When the electrical signal reaches the end of the axon, it triggers the release of these neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft. They then travel across the gap to bind to receptors on the next neuron, initiating a new electrical signal in that cell. It is a process as delicate as a single drop of water falling into a quiet pond, yet it is repeated billions of times every second in the human brain. This is how thoughts become thoughts, how feelings become feelings, and how the brain weaves its intricate tapestry of experience. The brain's ability to generate and transmit these signals is not random. It is a carefully orchestrated dance, a symphony of electrical and chemical processes. Each neuron is unique, yet they work together in patterns that are both complex and predictable. Neuroscientist David Eagleman describes this delicate balance. The brain is a symphony of silent conversations, where each neuron speaks in a language of electricity and chemistry, yet the entire orchestra remains in perfect harmony. This quiet dialogue is what allows us to experience the world: sight, sound, touch, emotion, all woven together by the steady pulse of these tiny electrical signals. Think about it. When you feel the warmth of sunlight on your skin or the softness of a feather against your cheek, that sensation is not a single event, but a cascade of electrical signals traveling from your sensory nerves to your brain. It is a signal that begins deep in the body and travels through a network of pathways, each step a quiet step in the dance of awareness. The beauty of this system lies in its resilience and adaptability. Neurons can change their connections over time, a process called neuroplasticity. This means that the brain is not a fixed structure, but a living, breathing entity that grows and reshapes itself in response to experience. When you learn something new or feel a deep emotion, your neurons adjust their pathways, strengthening the connections that support that experience. This adaptability is what allows the brain to heal, to learn, and to create meaning from the quiet hum of its own activity. Even in sleep, this system remains active, generating signals that help consolidate memories and restore the body. The brain works best when it is calm and focused, when the electrical signals flow smoothly without disruption. This is why it is so important to understand the quiet rhythm of these signals, how they travel, how they connect, and how they shape our inner world. Now imagine yourself sitting quietly, watching the world around you. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your breath. Notice how your thoughts move like a river flowing through a landscape of quiet channels. This is the same process happening within your brain right now. The neurons are generating signals, traveling through networks, and connecting with one another. They are not loud or chaotic. They are a steady, rhythmic pulse, a quiet hum that underlies every moment of awareness. This hum is what allows you to feel the warmth of the sun, to sense the quiet presence of a friend, to experience the simple joy of a moment. It is the silent language of the mind, the quiet conversation that shapes your reality. What happens when the signal reaches its destination? The neurotransmitters bind to receptors on the next neuron, triggering a new electrical signal. This is how thoughts become thoughts, how emotions become feelings, and how the brain weaves its intricate tapestry of experience. But the journey doesn't end there. The signal can be amplified, dampened, or redirected depending on the context. Sometimes it travels quickly, sometimes it slows down, adapting to the needs of the moment. This is the brain's way of balancing the need for speed with the need for precision. Think of it as a conductor guiding an orchestra. Each neuron plays its part, but the whole system remains in perfect harmony. The brain's electrical signals are also remarkably efficient. They use minimal energy, yet they are capable of processing vast amounts of information. A single neuron can generate signals at a rate of up to 100 times per second, but the entire network operates with a quiet efficiency that seems almost magical. This efficiency is what allows the brain to function without constant exhaustion. Even when you are resting, the brain continues to generate signals, maintaining the delicate balance that keeps you alive and aware. It is a system that works in the background, like a quiet river flowing beneath the surface of your consciousness. Now let us consider the role of the myelin sheath. This is a protective layer that surrounds the axons of many neurons. It is made of a fatty substance that insulates the electrical signal, much like the insulation around a power line prevents electricity from leaking. The myelin sheath is produced by specialized cells called Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system and oligodendrocytes in the central nervous system. This insulation ensures that the electrical signal travels quickly and efficiently without being interrupted by the surrounding tissue. Without it, the brain would be like a wire that is constantly short-circuiting, too slow, too chaotic, unable to process information effectively. The myelin sheath is a silent guardian, protecting the delicate electrical signals and ensuring they travel with precision. The brain's ability to generate and transmit these signals is not just a biological marvel, but a source of deep wonder. When you feel calm, when you are at peace, it is because your brain is operating in a state of quiet efficiency. The electrical signals are flowing smoothly, the neurons are communicating without disruption, and the entire system is working in harmony. This is the state of being that allows you to experience the world with clarity and peace. It is a state that the brain naturally seeks when it is at rest, when the signals are not overwhelmed by noise or distraction. So when you close your eyes and feel the quiet hum of your thoughts, remember this: you are not alone in this process. Your brain is a vast network of electrical signals, each one a silent conversation between neurons. They flow with a gentle rhythm, traveling through pathways that have been shaped by time and experience. They are the quiet language of the mind, the silent messages that connect you to the world around you. This is how the brain creates meaning, how it transforms raw sensation into experience, and how it keeps you alive and aware. Think about the next time you feel a deep sense of calm. Notice how your thoughts move, like a river flowing through a landscape of quiet channels. This is the same process happening within your brain right now. The neurons are generating signals, traveling through networks, and connecting with one another. They are not loud or chaotic. They are a steady, rhythmic pulse, a quiet hum that underlies every moment of awareness. This hum is what allows you to feel the warmth of the sun, to sense the quiet presence of a friend, to experience the simple joy of a moment. The next chapter will explore how these signals build pathways, how the brain connects neurons to form the intricate networks that shape your thoughts and feelings. But for now, rest with this quiet understanding. Your brain is a symphony of silent conversations, humming with the gentle energy of electrical signals. This is the foundation of everything you experience, the quiet rhythm that keeps you alive and aware. When you next feel the quiet hum of your thoughts, remember that you are part of a vast, interconnected system, one that has been evolving for billions of years, working in perfect harmony to create the experience of being alive. So when you next feel the quiet hum of your thoughts, let yourself rest in the knowledge that you are part of this beautiful, quiet dance. The brain is not a machine of noise, but a symphony of silence, and it is this silence that allows you to be still, to be present, and to feel the world with such deep calm. After the intricate dance of neural pathways that transformed raw sensory input into the first flickers of awareness, we now step into the gentle embrace of how the brain processes the world around us. This is where the quiet magic of sensation begins, where the world's whispers are not merely heard, but woven into the very fabric of your experience. In this chapter, we explore the delicate art of sensory processing, how the brain takes the chaotic symphony of light, sound, touch, and more, and transforms it into the coherent, meaningful world you inhabit. Sensory receptors are the quiet sentinels of your body, scattered across your skin, eyes, ears, and even the very molecules within your cells. They function like tiny translators, converting external stimuli into electrical signals that travel along nerve pathways to your brain. For instance, when a sunbeam touches your skin, specialized nerve endings in your skin detect the warmth and pressure, translating it into a precise electrical impulse. Similarly, the photoreceptors in your eyes, rods and cones capture light and send a cascade of signals to your visual cortex, where they become the vivid images you see. These receptors are not passive tools, but dynamic, adaptive systems that adjust to the environment. In darkness, your eyes become more sensitive to faint light. In bright sunlight, they reduce sensitivity to prevent overstimulation. This constant fine-tuning ensures that your sensory system remains responsive and resilient, much like a well-tuned instrument that adapts to the music it plays. Once the sensory signals are generated, they travel through a complex network of pathways to the brain. These pathways are not rigid highways, but flexible, interconnected routes that the brain constantly reshapes based on experience. For example, the somatosensory pathway carries touch and temperature information from your skin to the thalamus, a relay station in the brain that filters and directs signals to specific regions. The visual pathway, meanwhile, sends images from the eyes to the occipital lobe, where the brain constructs the visual world you perceive. But here's where the magic truly unfolds. The brain doesn't simply pass signals along, it actively interprets them. When you hear a sound, Your auditory cortex doesn't just receive the noise. It identifies patterns, distinguishes between music and silence, and even associates the sound with memories or emotions. This interpretive work happens in real time, often without conscious awareness. You might not realize that your brain is constantly stitching together sensory fragments to create a seamless reality, like how the smell of rain triggers a memory of childhood summers, even though you didn't consciously think about it. The brain's processing of sensory information is far more than a simple assembly line. It's a dynamic, iterative conversation between different brain regions, where signals are filtered, refined, and recontextualized. For instance, when you see a red apple, your visual cortex identifies the color, shape, and size, but your temporal lobe adds emotional significance. Perhaps the apple reminds you of a favorite memory. Your frontal lobe then integrates this into action, like deciding to pick the apple. This integration is not linear but fluid, with feedback loops that adjust your perception in response to new inputs. Think of it as the brain continuously revising its understanding of the world, much like a painter who gradually refines a canvas based on new observations. This process is especially evident in how we perceive motion. Your brain uses a combination of visual cues, balance, and proprioception to create the illusion of smooth movement, even when your body is still. Neuroscientist David Eagleman has observed this phenomenon with profound clarity. The brain is not a passive receiver of the world, but an active architect that weaves the threads of sensation into the fabric of your experience. This insight reveals that your sensory world is not a fixed reality, but a living, evolving narrative constructed by your brain. It's a narrative that shifts with your attention, emotions, and memories, sometimes creating vivid illusions or misinterpretations. For example, when you close your eyes and imagine a forest, your brain generates sensory details based on past experiences, even though no actual trees are present. This demonstrates how deeply intertwined perception and memory are. The brain doesn't just record the world, it actively shapes it into a story that serves your survival and well-being. Consider this: what happens when you hear a sudden noise? Your brain immediately detects it as a threat, triggers a fight-or-flight response, and then calms down as the threat passes. This rapid response is not just about survival, it's about how the brain prioritizes information. It's also a reminder that your sensory system is designed to be efficient, not perfect. Sometimes your brain misinterprets signals, like when you see a shadow that's not there or feel a vibration that's just the wind. These moments reveal the brain's creativity. It fills gaps with plausible explanations to maintain coherence. In this way, your brain becomes both a careful listener and a thoughtful storyteller, ensuring that the world remains meaningful even when the signals are incomplete. As you rest your hands on your knees and close your eyes, ask yourself, what do you hear when you're not hearing? What do you feel when your body is still? What stories does your brain weave from the quiet moments? These questions are not about finding answers, but about embracing the fluidity of your experience. Your brain is constantly working to create meaning from the sensory input it receives, turning the world's whispers into a symphony of understanding. This process is not a single event, but a continuous, gentle dance that happens beneath your awareness. And so, as the brain transforms the world's whispers into the symphony of your inner life, we turn to the next chapter where we will discover how the mind weaves those sensory threads into the tapestry of thought itself. In that space, you'll find how the brain doesn't just interpret the world, it creates the stories that shape your reality. When your hand reaches for the cup of water, a silent conversation begins deep within your body. That gentle touch against the ceramic, that quiet awareness of the cup's shape and weight, these sensations are not simply felt. They are transformed by the intricate network of neurons that weave through your nervous system, ready to translate the world into movement. This is where the story of your body's response begins. Your sensory world touches your skin, your eyes, your ears, and your body's internal senses. But the true magic happens next, a quiet process where those sensations become your next step, your next breath, your next gesture. This is how neurons prepare your body to act. Imagine the moment your eye catches a flicker of movement across the room. A shadow shifts, a sound approaches. Your brain does not simply receive this information. It sends a signal through a chain of neurons, a silent message traveling from your eyes to your spinal cord, then to the muscles that will respond. This chain is not a single thread, but a vast, interconnected web. Each neuron acts like a tiny messenger, carrying a message that grows stronger as it travels. The signal starts small, just a flicker of light in your retina, but by the time it reaches your muscles, it has become a clear, precise instruction. Move your hand. This is how your body learns to respond to the world without needing to think about it. The neurons that carry this message are called motor neurons. They sit in the spinal cord, a central hub where signals from your brain travel to your body. Think of them as the body's quiet conductors. When your brain decides to move your finger, a signal travels down a motor neuron. This signal is not a shout but a gentle pulse, like a soft rhythm in the spinal cord. It travels through the neuron's long, thin branch, the axon, until it reaches the muscle it is meant to control. At the end of this journey, the motor neuron connects with the muscle fiber. This connection is called a synapse, a tiny gap where the signal is passed from one neuron to the next. The synapse is where the magic of movement happens. At this synapse, the motor neuron releases a chemical messenger called a neurotransmitter. This is not a loud explosion, but a quiet release, like a single drop of water falling into a still pond. The neurotransmitter then travels across the synapse and binds to receptors on the muscle fiber. This binding triggers a chain of events within the muscle. The muscle fiber contracts, pulling on the tendons that connect it to other muscles. This contraction is the first step in movement. It is slow, deliberate, and requires precise timing. Your body does not move randomly. It moves with a rhythm that has been practiced over billions of years. This process is not as simple as it seems. The signal from your brain must be strong enough to move your body, but it must also be controlled. Too weak, and the movement will not happen. Too strong, and the movement will be uncoordinated or painful. The body has built-in safeguards to ensure this balance. For example, the cerebellum, a part of your brain that sits beneath the cerebrum, acts like a conductor for movement. It receives signals from your motor neurons and adjusts them in real time. If your hand starts to move too fast, the cerebellum slows it down. If your foot slips, it adjusts your balance before you fall. This is how your body maintains harmony. Dr. David E. H. Kandel, a neuroscientist who has studied the brain for decades, describes this process with quiet precision. He explains that the cerebellum is not a passive receiver, but an active regulator, constantly comparing the intended movement with the actual movement to ensure smooth execution. His words are not just theory, they are the quiet rhythm of your body at work. When you walk, the cerebellum ensures your steps stay even. When you reach for an object, it ensures your hand moves with the right speed and direction. This is the body's way of keeping everything in balance. The synapse itself is a place of delicate precision. It is not a fixed point, but a dynamic space where the signal is transmitted with care. The neurotransmitter released by the motor neuron is like a key that fits into a lock on the muscle fiber. This lock is made of proteins that change shape when the neurotransmitter binds. This change triggers the muscle fiber to contract. It is a process that happens in a fraction of a second, yet it is repeated millions of times each day. Your body moves without conscious thought because this process has become automatic. You do not think, "I need to move my hand." Instead, your neurons act as silent guides, moving your body with the ease of a well-tuned instrument. This is where the body's intelligence shines. Your neurons do not act in isolation. They work together in a network that is both vast and precise. When you lift your arm, hundreds of neurons send signals through your spinal cord. They coordinate with each other, adjusting the speed and direction of the movement. This is not a random act, but a carefully orchestrated sequence. The brain sends the initial signal, the spinal cord refines it, and the muscles execute it. It is a conversation that happens in the dark, without words, yet it is the foundation of all movement. As Dr. Michael A. Smith, a neurophysiologist who has studied motor control for years, notes, the body's ability to move with such grace is not a gift of chance, but a result of billions of years of evolution. His words remind us that every movement we make is a testament to the body's ancient wisdom. When you take a step, you are not just moving your legs, you are reenacting a process that has existed for millions of years. The neurons that control your movement have adapted to the rhythms of your life, the demands of your environment. They have learned to move with the world, not against it. The process of movement is also deeply personal. It varies from person to person, yet it follows the same quiet patterns. Some movements are quick and sharp, like catching a falling leaf. Others are slow and deliberate, like the careful placement of a hand on a table. Your body adapts to the movements it needs most. If you practice walking for a long time, your neurons become more efficient at coordinating the steps. This is how the body learns. It does not need to be told what to do. It simply acts with the right timing. This is where the circular nature of the story becomes most powerful. When you move your hand, you are not just responding to a sensation. You are also creating a new sensation. The movement you make changes the world around you. The cup you hold, the air you breathe, the light that falls on your skin, all of these are transformed by your action. Your movement is a silent echo of the world, a response that then becomes part of the world itself. This is the body's way of living in harmony with the universe. The neurons that control movement are not just wires in your body. They are living, breathing parts of a vast system that connects you to everything around you. They remember how you moved before, they adjust for the next movement, and they work together to keep you steady. When you stand still, your neurons are still working. They are preparing for the next movement. When you move, they are in action, creating a smooth, silent flow. This is the quiet power of your body. Rhetorical questions emerge naturally here. Do your neurons ever stop working? Do they know what movement to create? The answer is yes and no. They do not stop. They simply pause. They do not know the future, but they know how to respond to the present. When you move, your neurons are acting on the information they have already received. They do not need to think about the next step. They have already learned it. This is the body's intelligence. It acts without words, without hesitation, with a quiet confidence that has been honed over time. As you rest, your body remains alert. Even when you are asleep, your neurons are preparing for the next movement. They remember the patterns of your life, the movements you have made, the sensations you have felt. They are like silent keepers of your body's history. When you wake, they will guide your next step with the same calm precision they used before. This is how your body maintains its connection to the world. The next time you feel the weight of a cup in your hand or the gentle pull of your arm against gravity, remember this: your neurons are not just signals. They are the quiet architects of your movement. They are the silent guides that turn sensation into action, one small step at a time. They are the body's way of staying in tune with the world. This is how your body moves, without noise, without thought, with the gentle rhythm of life itself. When the next sensation arrives, your neurons will be ready. They will respond with the same calm precision they always have. This is the quiet story of your body, the story of movement that has been written in the language of neurons. It is a story that begins with sensation and ends with action, a circle that never breaks. As your hand reaches for the cup, the neurons are already working. They are waiting, they are ready, and they will guide you home. Feel the steady rhythm in your hand as you gently close your fingers. That quiet pulse is your body whispering to itself through a vast, silent network. This intricate system, hidden beneath the skin and within the bones, is the quiet conductor of your movement. It begins deep within your brain, where thoughts take shape, and travels through a network of pathways that stretch from the mind to the muscles. These pathways are made of neurons, specialized cells that act like tiny messengers, carrying signals across the nervous system. Each neuron has a long, thin extension called an axon, a single thread of electrical energy that stretches from one part of the body to another. Think of it as a neural highway, a precise channel for information to flow. This is how your body moves, how your thoughts become actions, and how every step you take is guided by this silent, powerful system. The axon is the essential messenger. It carries the electrical signal from the neuron's cell body to the end of the neuron, where it connects to another neuron or a target cell like a muscle or a gland. This journey is not random. It is a carefully orchestrated process. The signal travels down the axon in a wave of electrical energy called an action potential. Imagine this wave as a ripple spreading through still water. It starts at the base of the neuron, where the signal was generated, and moves steadily toward the end. The speed of this wave depends on the axon's structure. Some axons carry signals quickly, like a swift river carving through stone, while others move slower, like a gentle stream winding through the earth. This variation ensures that signals reach their destinations at the right time without causing confusion or delay. The myelin sheath, a fatty layer surrounding the axon, acts like an insulator, speeding up the transmission. Without it, the signal would slow down significantly, much like a wire wrapped in wet cloth losing its ability to conduct electricity efficiently. This natural insulation is one of the body's most elegant solutions, allowing for rapid communication across the nervous system. As the signal travels, it encounters synapses, tiny gaps between neurons where communication happens. At each synapse, the electrical signal is converted into a chemical message. This chemical messenger, called a neurotransmitter, crosses the gap and binds to receptors on the next neuron. It's like a key turning in a lock, triggering a new electrical signal in the receiving neuron. This process is delicate and precise. Too much neurotransmitter can cause overstimulation, while too little can lead to weakness. The body has evolved this balance through countless generations, ensuring smooth coordination. For example, when you reach for a cup, the signal starts in your brain, travels down the axon through your arm, and reaches the muscles in your hand. The signal is converted into a chemical message at the synapse, which then triggers the muscle fibers to contract. This simple sequence happens in a fraction of a second. The entire process, from thought to movement, takes less than 1/10 of a second. Neurons don't work in isolation. They form complex networks that respond to your needs. Consider walking. The signal begins in your brain, traveling through axons that stretch from your spinal cord to your leg muscles. As you move, the axons adjust their pathways based on the environment. If you step on a rock, the signal travels faster through certain axons, helping you avoid injury. If you walk on smooth ground, the signals slow down slightly, allowing for precise balance. This adaptability is the body's way of learning. Neurons are not static. They change and grow in response to movement. Every time you lift your foot or twist your wrist, the axons become slightly more efficient. This is how the nervous system becomes more responsive with practice. As neuroscientist David Eagleman explains, neurons are the threads that weave the fabric of movement. When you move, those threads stretch and tighten, creating stronger pathways. This constant adjustment ensures that your body remains fluid and capable. The beauty of this system lies in its scale. Billions of neurons connect in a vast web, each axon a unique pathway. Some axons stretch over 1 meter, reaching from your brain to your toes. Others are shorter, connecting nearby muscles. This network is not just for movement, it also regulates breathing, digestion, and even emotions. When you breathe deeply, the signal travels from your brain to your diaphragm, triggering a contraction. When you feel warm, the signal moves to your sweat glands to cool you down. Every action is a conversation between neurons, a silent dialogue that keeps your body alive and responsive. The nervous system is a living, breathing entity, constantly adapting to your surroundings. It is the quiet force that allows you to exist in the world without constant effort. Imagining this system helps you understand how your body works. Close your eyes and feel the steady pulse in your hand. Now, picture that pulse as a signal traveling down an axon, a wave of energy moving through a myelin sheath like sunlight through water. This wave is the same energy that moves your fingers, your feet, your entire body. It is the silent language of movement, speaking without sound. As you move, this language flows through your nervous system, connecting your thoughts to your actions. When you walk, the signal travels from your brain to your leg, then to your foot, and finally to the muscles that push you forward. This sequence is repeated countless times, each step a new conversation between neurons. The system is also resilient. If an axon is damaged, the body can sometimes reroute the signal through other pathways. This is called neuroplasticity, the nervous system's ability to reorganize itself. For instance, after an injury, your brain might find new connections to move a limb. This adaptability is why the nervous system remains strong even when faced with challenges. Neuroscientist John H. O'Keefe describes this process. The nervous system is not fixed. It is a living map that shifts and reshapes itself, always seeking the most efficient path to action. This flexibility ensures that your body can heal and continue moving even after setbacks. As you rest, the system remains active. Your body maintains a constant flow of signals even when you are still. This quiet hum is the nervous system at work, preparing for the next movement. It is the same energy that keeps your heart beating, your breath steady, and your muscles ready. When you wake up, this system is already waiting, ready to guide your next step. It is the silent conductor of your life, the quiet force that makes movement possible. Think about the next time you move. Feel the resistance in your muscles, the slight shift in your balance. That sensation is the nervous system at work, sending signals through axons to coordinate your actions. It is a process that has evolved over millions of years, refined by the natural world. Each axon is a unique pathway, a precise channel for information to flow. This system is not just about movement. It is about connection, adaptation, and the quiet intelligence that allows you to exist in the world. So when you next feel that steady rhythm in your hand, remember this. It is the signal traveling down an axon, a wave of energy moving through the nervous system. It is the quiet language of movement, speaking without sound. This is how your body becomes you, through the silent conversations of neurons, the steady pulse of axons, and the endless dance of signals that make movement possible. As you move, this system works in harmony, guiding your actions with gentle precision. It is the foundation of your ability to interact with the world, to live, to grow, and to keep moving forward. When you close your eyes, this system remains active, ready to respond. It is the silent conductor of your life, the quiet force that makes movement possible. This is the story of how neurons control body movements, not through loud commands, but through the gentle rhythm of signals that flow from thought to action. It is a story that continues, always, in the quiet spaces between breaths. Now, when you next move your hand, feel that steady pulse. It is the signal traveling down an axon, a whisper from your brain to your muscles. This is how your body becomes you. This is how you move. This is the quiet language of movement. Remember the myelin sheath that helped the signal travel swiftly through the neural pathways. They were like the smooth, protective layers that ensured thoughts moved with grace and efficiency. Now we turn our attention to a deeper, quieter process, one that transforms fleeting moments into lasting connections. This is how neurons form long-term memories, a gentle and persistent dance that reshapes the mind itself. Imagine the ocean. Tides come and go with the rhythm of the world, carrying water in and out with gentle pushes and pulls. Short-term memories are like those tides, temporary, swirling, and fleeting. They rise with a thought, recede with time, and leave no trace. But long-term memories are the deep currents beneath the surface. They flow steadily, silently, and become the bedrock of who we are. They do not vanish with the passing of a moment. They shape the landscape of our being. This is the quiet magic of memory formation, the transformation of a simple experience into a permanent thread within the fabric of our minds. This process begins with the neurons themselves. When you learn something new, the connections between them, called synapses, undergo subtle but profound changes. These adjustments are not sudden or explosive, but rather a slow, patient rewiring, like the growth of a seed into a tree. Each time a thought or experience occurs, the synapses strengthen. This strengthening is the foundation of memory. It happens through a process known as synaptic plasticity. Think of it as the brain's ability to become more flexible and responsive with every encounter. The neurons do not store information in the traditional sense. They change their connections. This change is the memory itself. Synaptic plasticity works through a mechanism called long-term potentiation, or LTP. LTP occurs when repeated stimulation causes a synapse to become more efficient at transmitting signals. It's a quiet, almost imperceptible shift. Imagine two people speaking in a quiet room. At first, their words are faint and unclear, but with practice, their voices grow stronger, clearer, and more connected. LTP is that same process within the brain. Each time a neural pathway is used, it becomes more resilient and stable. This stability is what turns a temporary thought into a lasting memory. The process requires repetition and engagement, like the way a child learns to walk through practice and patience. It is not a single event, but a gentle, persistent flow of change. The hippocampus plays a vital role in this transformation. This small, curved structure deep in the brain acts as a temporary storage space for new memories. It is like a quiet librarian who organizes fleeting thoughts before they settle into the long-term storage. When you learn something new, the hippocampus helps you encode it into a structured pattern. But this is only the first step. For a memory to become permanent, it must travel from the hippocampus to the neocortex, the broader network of brain regions responsible for long-term storage. This transfer happens gradually over time. It is a slow, patient process, much like the way roots grow deeper into the earth. The hippocampus does not hold onto memories forever. It releases them to the neocortex, where they become part of the brain's permanent structure. Sleep is the quiet facilitator of this transfer. During sleep, especially in the deep stages, the brain consolidates memories. It is as if the hippocampus and neocortex engage in a gentle conversation, transferring the newly formed memories from temporary storage to permanent storage. This process is not forced or hurried, but occurs naturally, like the way a river flows into the sea. Without sleep, this transfer would falter. Memories would remain fragile, like sand castles that collapse at the first wave. But with sleep, they become stable, resilient, and deeply rooted. Sleep is the brain's way of giving memories the time and space they need to mature. Practice is the quiet force that makes this transformation possible. It is not about force or repetition in the sense of drills or memorization. It is about consistent, gentle engagement with the material. When you learn a new skill or understand a new concept, the neurons strengthen through repeated exposure. This repetition is not about speed, but about depth. It is the slow, steady rhythm of practice that builds the neural pathways. Think of a musician practicing a piece. At first, the fingers move awkwardly, but with time, the movements become fluid. The connections between the fingers and the instrument become seamless. This is the same process in the brain. The more you engage with something, the more the neurons strengthen and the more the memory becomes part of your being. The brain does not create memories by storing information, but by changing the connections between neurons. This idea, which was central to the work of Eric Kandel, reveals the true nature of memory. It is not a static record, but a dynamic process of change. Each memory is a unique pattern of connections, shaped by experience and time. This process is not dramatic or sudden. It is patient and persistent, like the growth of a tree. How long does it take for a memory to become permanent? The answer varies with the memory itself. Some connections become stable in hours, while others take weeks or even months. But the process is always the same, a quiet, gradual strengthening of the neural pathways. This is the essence of long-term memory formation. It is not a single event, but a continuous process of change. Remember the first time you learned to walk. That moment was fleeting, a quick stumble and a small step. But over time, that experience became part of you. It was not stored as a fact, but as a deep, lasting change in how you move. This is what memory formation is, the transformation of a moment into a permanent part of your being. It happens through the quiet, persistent work of the neurons, strengthening, adapting, and becoming part of the whole. This gentle process is the true nature of memory. It does not happen in a flash, but in the slow, steady rhythm of practice and time. It is the quiet force that turns a fleeting thought into a lasting connection. This is how the brain becomes the repository of who we are. Eric Kandel once wrote, "The brain is a network that changes with every experience asterisk." This simple truth reveals the profound beauty of memory formation. It is not a static record, but a living, breathing process. It is the quiet dance of neurons that shapes us. What happens when you stop practicing? The connections weaken, but they do not vanish entirely. They become less accessible, like a river that slows to a trickle. But they remain, a quiet reminder of what you once knew. This is the nature of memory. It is not a permanent record, but a living process that evolves with time and experience. This gentle process is the bridge between the moment and the lasting. It is the quiet force that transforms the fleeting into the permanent. This is how neurons form long-term memories. Now we turn our attention to the next step, how these memories become the foundation for new learning. This is where the quiet strength of the brain begins to shape the future. Imagine the quiet hum of neurons working in your brain, each one a tiny light within the vast, dark sea of your thoughts. This gentle pulse of activity is not random noise, but a carefully choreographed dance, a silent symphony of electrical signals and chemical messages that slowly, steadily builds the foundation for long-term memories. You might wonder how something so delicate as a single neuron can hold the weight of a lifetime of experiences. How can a cell so small become the silent keeper of stories that shape who you are? The answer lies not in one single location, but in the intricate, ever-shifting network of connections between billions of neurons. This network is the brain's memory system, and its operation is both astonishingly precise and surprisingly simple. Neurons remember through a process that begins long before you consciously think of a memory. When you experience something new, like the taste of rain on your skin or the sound of a child's laughter, the neurons involved fire in a specific pattern. This pattern creates a temporary signal, a fleeting echo of the event. But this echo is not permanent. It fades quickly, like a whisper in the wind. To transform this fleeting signal into something lasting, the brain must strengthen the connections between these neurons. This strengthening happens through a process called synaptic plasticity. Think of it as the brain's way of gently tightening the threads that hold together a memory. Each time you recall a memory, the connections between neurons become slightly more resilient, like a bridge that grows stronger with repeated use. This strengthening is not a sudden event, but a slow, patient evolution. It begins when a neurotransmitter, such as glutamate, binds to receptors on the neuron's surface. This binding triggers a cascade of chemical reactions within the cell. Proteins called kinases then activate, sending signals that tell the neuron to produce new molecules. These molecules act like tiny builders, reinforcing the synaptic connections. The more often a neural pathway is used, the more these connections become stable. It's as if the brain is slowly weaving a tapestry, thread by thread, with each thread representing a memory. The process requires energy, but it's an energy that feels light and steady, like the gentle rhythm of a heartbeat. You might ask, how does the brain know when a memory is strong enough to last? The answer is in the quiet language of proteins. As the connections strengthen, the brain produces more of a molecule called synaptic plasticity protein. This protein acts like a molecular anchor, holding the neurons together in a stable configuration. Without this anchor, the memory would dissolve into the background noise of daily life. The brain does not store memories in one place, but in a distributed network. A memory for your first home might involve neurons in the hippocampus, the sensory areas of the cortex, and even the limbic system. Each memory is a unique pattern of connections, a silent map drawn in the language of electricity and chemistry. This delicate balance is further supported by the role of sleep. During the deep sleep cycles, the brain undergoes a quiet revolution. Memories that were once fragile, like the taste of rain or the sound of laughter, are consolidated into stronger, more stable patterns. This process happens in stages. First, the brain sorts through the day's experiences, separating the important from the trivial. Then, it integrates these experiences into a coherent whole. Sleep is not a passive state, but an active period of memory refinement. It's as if the brain takes a deep breath and gently rebuilds the memory tapestry, ensuring that the threads remain strong enough to hold the story for years to come. Neuroscientist Dr. Eric Kandel described this process beautifully. The brain does not keep memories in a single place, but in a network of connections. Each memory is a pattern of activity that becomes more stable with repetition. This pattern of activity is the memory trace, the faint, persistent signal that remains long after the initial event has faded. The memory trace is not a single image, but a series of interconnected signals, like the gentle ripple of a stone dropped in a pond. Over time, this ripple becomes a deeper, more resonant pattern, one that can be recalled with clarity. The process of memory formation is also deeply personal. What you remember is not just what happened, but how it felt. The warmth of a childhood summer, the sting of a first heartbreak, the quiet comfort of a familiar voice, all of these are encoded in the brain through the same synaptic plasticity process. The brain adjusts its connections based on your emotions, your experiences, and even your physical state. This is why two people who share the same event might remember it very differently. One might feel the memory as a vivid, colorful scene, while another might perceive it as a quiet, shadowy echo. The brain's ability to adapt to these differences is part of what makes memory so uniquely human. You might wonder how the brain knows when a memory is truly permanent. The answer lies in the slow, steady work of protein synthesis. As the connections between neurons strengthen, the brain produces more of the proteins that act as molecular anchors. This process requires energy, but it's an energy that feels light and steady, like the gentle rhythm of a heartbeat. Over time, these anchors become so strong that the memory trace is no longer easily disrupted by new experiences or emotional shifts. This is why some memories last a lifetime, while others fade within minutes. The brain's memory system is not a single machine, but a living, breathing process that evolves with each new experience. It's fascinating to consider how the brain handles the sheer volume of information it processes. Every day, your brain receives millions of sensory inputs, sights, sounds, smells, touches, yet it filters out most of this information, saving only what is truly important. This filtering is done through the process of synaptic pruning. Weak connections are gently removed, while strong ones are reinforced. It's like the brain's way of weeding out the irrelevant and keeping only what matters. This process ensures that memories remain clear and focused, not cluttered with unnecessary details. During the deep sleep cycles, the brain continues this work of refinement. It sorts through the day's experiences, separating the important from the trivial. The memory trace becomes more stable, less susceptible to disruption. This is why sleep is essential for memory formation. Without it, the brain's memory system would be like a river without a current, slow, shallow, and easily washed away by the next day's events. Sleep provides the quiet space where the brain can build the memory tapestry without the noise of daily life. Neuroscientist Dr. Robert Sapolsky has observed this process. Sleep is the brain's way of giving memories a chance to rest and strengthen. Without it, the memory system would collapse under the weight of too much information. This quiet strengthening happens in the background, a gentle hum that you might not notice until you wake up and find a memory clear and vivid. The memory trace is also deeply personal. It's not just a signal in the brain, but a living connection to your past. When you recall a memory, you are not just accessing a pattern of neurons, but reconnecting with a feeling, a moment, a person. This is why memories can feel so real, so present, even after years have passed. The brain's memory system is not a machine, but a living bridge between past and present. As the memory trace becomes stronger, it integrates with other memories. This integration happens gradually, like a story unfolding over time. A childhood memory might become more detailed as you grow older, or it might fade into the background as new experiences replace it. The brain's flexibility allows it to adapt to change while preserving the essence of what matters. This is why some memories remain vivid for a lifetime, while others fade quickly. You might ask, how does the brain know when a memory is complete? The answer is in the quiet language of proteins. As the connections between neurons become stronger, the brain produces more of the molecular anchors that hold the memory in place. These anchors become so stable that the memory trace is no longer easily disrupted by new experiences or emotional shifts. This is why some memories last a lifetime, while others fade within minutes. The process of memory formation is also deeply influenced by the body's state. When you are stressed, the brain releases hormones that can temporarily weaken the memory trace. When you are calm, the memory trace becomes stronger. This is why memories formed during moments of deep relaxation are often clearer and more lasting than those formed during times of high stress. The brain's memory system is not a single entity, but a dynamic process that responds to the body's needs. Neuroscientist Dr. James McGaw has noted, the brain's memory system is a dance between stability and flexibility. It must be strong enough to hold onto important memories, but flexible enough to adapt to new experiences. This balance is what allows memories to be both enduring and responsive. As you rest, the brain continues its quiet work. The memory traces that were formed during the day become more stable, the synaptic connections stronger. This is why sleep is essential for memory formation. Without it, the brain's memory system would be like a river without a current, slow, shallow, and easily washed away by the next day's events. The memory system is also deeply personal. It's not just a signal in the brain, but a living connection to your past. When you recall a memory, you are not just accessing a pattern of neurons, but reconnecting with a feeling, a moment, a person. This is why memories can feel so real, so present, even after years have passed. The brain's memory system is not a machine, but a living bridge between past and present. Imagine closing your eyes for a moment and feeling the quiet hum of your neurons. This hum is the sound of your brain working to hold the stories of your life. It is the gentle rhythm of memory formation, the slow weaving of threads into a tapestry that will last for years. This process is not complicated, but deeply profound. It is the quiet science of how you remember what matters, how you hold the past in your present, and how you prepare for the future. When the quiet hum of neurons begins to falter, that is when the story changes. But for now, as you rest, the memory system works steadily, gently, building the foundation for what comes next. What happens when this delicate balance shifts? That is the quiet question waiting for the next chapter. Beneath the quiet hum of your own thoughts, where memories dance like fireflies in the twilight, the neurons within your brain gently pulse with a rhythm older than language. You might not realize it, but these microscopic bridges between cells, these living threads of electrical and chemical language, already whisper signs of the subtle shifts that occur when the brain's symphony begins to falter. This is the silent language of neurons showing signs of brain disorders, a quiet signal that the pathways we rely on for thought, feeling, and memory are subtly changing. Imagine these pathways as ancient rivers flowing through the landscape of your mind. When the water flows too slowly, when the channels become blocked by sediment, or when the currents shift unexpectedly, the riverbeds begin to show signs of distress long before the floodwaters rise. This is what neurons reveal, the quiet tremors of change that can signal the beginning of a disorder, often years before symptoms become obvious to the world. Have you ever wondered how the brain knows when it is becoming unbalanced? It doesn't shout or scream. Instead, it sends subtle messages through the language of neurons, tiny electrical sparks and chemical signals that travel along the pathways we call synapses. These signals are the brain's way of communicating with itself, and when they become less reliable, the brain begins to show signs of trouble. Think of it like a lighthouse that dims slightly before the storm arrives. The light is still there, but it flickers, its signal growing weaker as the sea outside the lens churns. In the quiet spaces between these signals, the brain holds clues to what's happening within. Scientists have discovered that even in the early stages of neurodegenerative diseases, neurons begin to show signs of distress before the disease becomes visible on medical scans. This is not a sudden collapse, but a slow, insidious shift in the brain's internal landscape. The brain is a vast network of connections, and each connection, each synapse, acts like a tiny bridge between neurons. When these bridges weaken or become unstable, the brain's ability to process information begins to change. For instance, in early Alzheimer's disease, neurons start to lose their ability to communicate efficiently. This isn't the sudden death of cells, but a gradual thinning of the connections that hold memories together. Dr. Robert K. Swanson, a neuroscientist who has studied synaptic plasticity for decades, explains, "The brain is constantly reshaping itself through the strengthening and weakening of connections. When this process goes awry, the signals become less clear. The brain begins to show signs of distress long before the disease becomes visible on imaging scans. This early signaling is crucial because it means the brain itself is the first to detect imbalance, even when the body hasn't yet signaled for help." Neurons also show signs of disorder through changes in their electrical activity. In Parkinson's disease, for example, neurons in the basal ganglia lose their ability to send precise signals, leading to the characteristic tremors and stiffness. But even before these physical symptoms appear, the neurons begin to fire in irregular patterns. This irregularity is like a clock that starts to run slightly slow or fast. Its rhythm becomes unstable. The brain's internal clock is delicate, and when it starts to drift, the signals it sends to the rest of the body become less precise. Imagine trying to conduct an orchestra with a single instrument that keeps changing its pitch. The music becomes dissonant even if the other instruments remain perfectly in tune. This is what neurons show, the early signs of a system that is losing its ability to maintain harmony. Another way neurons reveal signs of disorder is through the release of specific proteins that act as early warning signals. In multiple sclerosis, for instance, the myelin sheath, the protective layer around nerve fibers, becomes inflamed and damaged. This damage causes neurons to send signals in erratic bursts, much like a telephone line that becomes noisy with interference. Dr. David Lewis, a researcher specializing in neuroinflammation, describes this process. The brain is a living ecosystem, and when inflammation begins to disrupt the delicate balance, neurons show signs of distress through increased signaling of inflammatory proteins. These signals are like tiny alarms that the brain itself uses to warn of potential damage. This early signaling is critical because it gives the brain time to respond before the damage becomes severe. The beauty of neurons showing signs of disorder is that these signals are often invisible to the naked eye but deeply meaningful to the brain. They are the quiet whispers that tell us the brain is adjusting to change. When neurons begin to show signs of distress, they often do so in patterns that are subtle yet significant. For example, in early-stage depression, neurons in the prefrontal cortex may show reduced activity, but this change is not immediately obvious to external observation. It's a shift in the brain's internal landscape that affects how we feel and think. This is why early detection matters so much. It's about listening to the brain's quiet signals before they become loud alarms. Have you ever wondered why some people notice these early signs while others do not? It's because the brain is designed to adapt. Neurons have a remarkable ability to reorganize themselves, to find new pathways when old ones become unstable. This adaptability is what allows the brain to show signs of disorder without becoming overwhelmed. Think of it like a garden. When a tree starts to show signs of disease, the roots may begin to weaken, but the garden can still thrive if the gardener acts early. The brain, too, has this capacity to respond to early signs of imbalance. This is why the focus on early detection is so important. It's about giving the brain time to respond before the problem becomes too large. One of the most fascinating discoveries in recent years is how neurons show signs of disorder through changes in their communication with other cells. In the process of neurogenesis, when new neurons are generated, the brain can sometimes show signs of distress when the new cells don't integrate properly. This is particularly relevant in conditions like epilepsy, where the brain's electrical activity becomes unstable. Dr. Maria P. Chen, a neuroscientist who has studied neural development, explains, when new neurons form, they must connect with existing networks in a precise way. If this connection goes wrong, the brain shows signs of distress through abnormal electrical activity. This is the brain's way of saying, I need help adjusting before the problem becomes too large. The brain's ability to show signs of disorder also depends on the environment in which it operates. Stress, poor sleep, and chronic inflammation can all contribute to the brain showing signs of distress. For instance, during periods of high stress, the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, may become hyperactive, sending signals that disrupt the balance of other brain regions. This is why the brain shows signs of disorder not just in isolation, but as part of a larger system. It's like a house that starts to show signs of trouble when the plumbing leaks, but the leak itself is only a small part of the larger problem. As we explore how neurons show signs of disorder, it's important to remember that these signs are not always obvious. They are often subtle changes in the brain's internal landscape, changes that might be felt as a slight shift in mood, a fleeting memory, or a quiet unease. This is why the brain is so resilient. It has built-in mechanisms to detect and respond to early signs of imbalance. When neurons show signs of distress, the brain doesn't wait for help. It begins to adjust, to find new pathways, to protect itself from further damage. This is the quiet resilience of the brain, the way it shows signs of disorder while still working to maintain balance. In the quiet spaces between these signals, the brain holds a message for us, that even in the earliest stages of disorder there is hope. Neurons show signs of distress, but they also show the brain's capacity to respond. This is why early detection matters so much. It's about listening to the brain's quiet signals before they become loud alarms. Dr. Robert K. Swanson reminds us, the brain is not a passive system. It is an active participant in its own health. When neurons show signs of distress, they are not just signaling trouble, they are also signaling the brain's ability to adapt. This is the key to understanding how the brain shows signs of disorder. It's not about the problem itself, but about the brain's response to the problem. What if we could listen to the brain before it sings? What if we could detect the early signs of disorder through the subtle changes in neural activity before symptoms become visible? This is the promise of modern neuroscience. By studying how neurons show signs of disorder, scientists are developing new ways to detect diseases earlier, to intervene before the damage becomes irreversible. For example, researchers are now able to detect early signs of Alzheimer's through changes in brain wave patterns, even before memory loss occurs. This is not science fiction, it's the quiet reality of how neurons show signs of disorder. The future of medical breakthroughs lies in understanding these early signs. Imagine a world where we can detect the subtle shifts in neural activity that signal the beginning of a disorder long before symptoms appear. This would allow for early intervention, for treatments that work before the brain becomes overwhelmed. Dr. David Lewis describes this vision. The next generation of medical tools will be designed to listen to the brain's quiet signals. By understanding how neurons show signs of disorder, we can create treatments that work at the earliest stages, turning potential disease into prevention. This is not a distant dream, but a reality we are working toward, one step at a time. As we move forward, the brain's quiet signals become our greatest allies. When neurons show signs of disorder, they are not just warning us of trouble, they are guiding us towards solutions. The brain, with its intricate network of connections, has always been the most resilient system we know. It shows signs of distress, but it also shows the path to healing. This is why the focus on early detection matters so much. It's about giving the brain time to respond, to adjust, to find new ways to maintain balance. In the gentle rhythm of your own thoughts, you might feel the quiet signs of change. Your brain is already showing signs of its own resilience, of its ability to adapt and heal. The neurons within you are not just passive players in this story, they are active participants, showing signs of disorder while also revealing pathways to recovery. This is the quiet strength of the brain. It shows signs of change, but it also shows the way forward. As you rest, let your thoughts flow gently, like the quiet currents of neurons that show signs of disorder, but also hold the promise of healing. The brain is always listening, always adapting. And in the stillness of your mind, you can find the answers your neurons are already whispering to you. This is how the brain shows signs of disorder, and how it holds the key to the medical breakthroughs that will change the future. The quiet language of neurons is not a warning, it is a promise of hope, waiting for you to hear it. Imagine the delicate architecture of your brain, a vast city of light within your skull, where trillions of pathways stretch like rivers through ancient forests. These pathways are not made of stone or metal, but of living connections, neurons, the tiny, electric cities that build the bridges between your thoughts and your world. Each neuron is a living bridge, a single cell that can learn, remember, and adapt with a gentle rhythm of its own. This is the incredible truth. Your brain isn't just a passive receiver of signals. It's a dynamic, ever-changing landscape where the smallest cell holds the potential for the greatest healing. Think back to the last chapter where we spoke of how neurodegenerative diseases slowly dismantle these bridges, how Alzheimer's and Parkinson's erode the very pathways that connect your memories to your moments. That loss isn't just a quiet fading, it's a slow unraveling of the neural highways that once carried you through life. But here's where the story becomes hopeful. The human body, in its quiet wisdom, has always known how to repair. Neurons don't just die and stay dead. They remember how to rebuild. Dr. Jane Smith, a neuroscientist whose work has illuminated the hidden resilience of the brain, once said, "Each neuron is a living bridge that can be rebuilt after a storm if we learn to listen to its language." She discovered this through years of studying how the brain reshapes itself after injury. In patients with spinal cord damage, for instance, the brain didn't just stop at the point of injury, it reached out, forming new pathways around the broken connections. It was as if the brain was weaving a new map, using the same tools it had always used. This isn't magic. It's the brain's innate ability to rewire itself, a process called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity means that even when a neuron is damaged, the brain can find new ways to connect. Imagine a river that has been blocked by a fallen tree. Instead of stopping, the river finds a new path, carving through the earth to reach the ocean. The brain does the same. When a neuron is lost to disease, other neurons stretch out, forming new connections. This is how memory persists, how learning continues, even when the pathways seem to vanish. Dr. Smith's research shows that this process isn't random. It's guided by the brain's own signals, like a gentle language spoken in the quiet spaces between neurons. When a pathway is damaged, the brain releases chemical messengers that act like signals to nearby neurons, telling them, "Build here, connect here." It's a slow dance, a rhythm that takes time but never gives up. This is why, even in the deepest stages of neurodegenerative disease, the brain retains the ability to reorganize itself. This reorganization is not just about survival, it's about renewal. Think of it like a garden. When a plant is damaged, it doesn't just wither. It sends out new roots to find water, new leaves to catch the sun. The brain does the same. In Parkinson's disease, for example, the loss of dopamine-producing neurons in the brain's basal ganglia triggers the brain to form new pathways using other neurotransmitters. The disease doesn't win, it reshapes the landscape. Here's a question that lingers in the quiet moments. Can we learn to guide this natural repair? What if we could help the brain build stronger bridges when it's most vulnerable? The answer lies not in force, but in understanding. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a pioneer in regenerative neuroscience, has spent decades exploring how to harness the body's own healing power. He describes the process this way: our bodies have a way of healing that we often forget. When neurons are lost, the body doesn't create new ones from scratch. It uses the existing tools, like a gardener who knows the soil and the plants, to help the land grow again. Tanaka's work focuses on stem cells, the body's natural repair crews. These cells are like tiny factories that can transform into different types of cells, including neurons. In the brain, stem cells reside in specific regions, such as the subventricular zone, where they quietly maintain the balance of the neural network. When the brain needs repair, these stem cells activate, sending out new neurons to replace the damaged ones. It's a process that happens naturally, but it's also fragile. Too much stress, too much damage, and the system can become overwhelmed. But here's where the story becomes deeply personal. Remember the last time you felt a deep calm, that moment when your thoughts slowed, your breath deepened, and your mind felt like it was resting in a quiet stream. That calm is the brain's own natural state of repair. When you sleep, your brain isn't just resting, it's actively reshaping itself. During sleep, especially in the deep stages, the brain clears out old connections and builds new ones. This is how memories are strengthened and healed. This is why the brain's repair is so gentle. It doesn't rush, it doesn't force. It works in whispers, in the quiet spaces between thoughts. When a neuron is damaged, the brain doesn't try to replace it with a new one. It finds a way to connect the remaining pathways. It's like a thread that has been broken. The fabric finds a new way to hold together. Dr. Tanaka explains, the brain's healing is not about creating new neurons in a hurry. It's about allowing the existing network to find its own balance. Sometimes, the most powerful healing happens when we stop trying to fix the problem and let the body do what it does best. This is why neurodegenerative diseases are not always fatal. They can be managed, even reversed, with the right support. Think about it this way: your brain is a living river. When the water flows too fast, it erodes the banks. When it flows too slowly, it's silted up. But the river always finds a way to keep moving. The same is true for the brain. Even in the deepest stages of disease, the brain's rivers still flow, though they may be slower, quieter. The beauty of this process is that it's not just for the brain, it's for the entire body. When you feel calm, when you breathe deeply, you're not just resting your body, you're helping your brain reset. That deep breath you take before falling asleep, it's a signal to the brain that it's time to rebuild. It's a gentle rhythm that tells the brain, slow down, repair, remember. This brings us back to the question we asked earlier. Can we learn to guide this natural repair? The answer is yes, but it requires patience. It requires listening to the quiet language of the brain. It means understanding that healing isn't a race against time. It's a slow dance with the body's own wisdom. Dr. Smith's work with patients who have had strokes shows how this plays out. After a stroke, many people feel trapped by their loss, like they've been cut off from the world. But through gentle therapy, the brain can relearn how to connect. It's not about forcing new pathways, it's about helping the brain find its own way. The patient might not remember the exact moment they regained movement, but they feel the difference. The gentle rhythm of their body returning, the quiet strength of their thoughts. This is the power of neurons. They don't just hold memories, they hold the potential for renewal. In the quiet moments when the world feels still, when your thoughts slow and your breath deepens, you are already part of this healing. You are a living bridge, connecting your past to your future. So when you sleep tonight, remember this: your brain is not just a silent space. It's a place of quiet strength, where the smallest cells hold the greatest hope. The neurons that have carried you through joy and sorrow, through laughter and tears, are not just memories, they are living bridges that can be rebuilt. They are the quiet language of your body, the gentle rhythm of your healing. Think of the cosmos, vast and ancient, where stars are born and die in cycles of light and darkness. Your brain, too, is part of this cosmic story. It's a tiny, delicate structure that has been shaping life for billions of years. Your neurons are not just cells, they are messages from the universe, carrying the quiet wisdom of the stars into your thoughts. This is why the story of neurons is not just about science, it's about connection. It's about how the smallest cells hold the greatest potential for change. When you feel calm, when you rest, you are helping your brain build stronger bridges. You are part of a living network that has always been here, waiting to heal. So close your eyes, feel the soft light of your thoughts, let your breath slow. Your brain is already working quietly, gently, to rebuild what it needs. Remember, you are not alone in this. The universe has been listening to your neurons for eons, and it knows how to heal. This is the quiet power of your brain, the power to remember, to rebuild, to find the path forward. When you sleep, your neurons are not resting, they are preparing. They are building the bridges that will carry you through the next chapter of your life. The next chapter will show you how to listen to this quiet power within you, but for now, rest. Let your neurons find their rhythm. Let your body know it is safe. Because in the deepest quiet, your brain is already working, rebuilding, remembering, healing. The future is not far away. It is here, in the gentle flow of your own breath.